welcome back to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make Briam tart. Briam is the Greek version of Ratatouille. It's basically a vegetable dish that's made with eggplant, zucchini, onions, and really anything that's in season or whatever your favorite vegetables are. It's roasted in the oven in a lovely tomato sauce, but today I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it on top of puff pastry, bake it in the oven, and we're just going to elevate it and make it more elegant and bring it up a notch. The whole thing is vegan because I am using puff pastry that's made with vegetable oil, not butter. If you're not worried about keeping it vegan, use an all butter puff pastry. If you want to substitute the puff pastry for phyllo, you can definitely do that by using phyllo sheets and then brushing olive oil in between each layer. That will work too. Let's go over the ingredients so we can get started. For the sauce, we're going to need a little bit of olive oil, salt, garlic cloves, crushed red pepper flakes for heat. You can leave them out if you don't like them. Some black pepper, olives. These are Kalamata olives that have been pitted. And these are some canned diced tomatoes that I've pureed. Then we're going to need an eggplant. This is a Chinese eggplant, but you can use a regular eggplant if you want. 2 zucchinis, some mushrooms, which are also optional, an onion, a red bell pepper. You can use any color bell pepper that you like. 2 potatoes, some parsley, and puff pastry. We're going to begin by making the sauce. The sauce is a very simple homemade tomato sauce. If you want to skip this step and make it a little quicker, you can use store-bought tomato sauce too. Any or your favorite pasta sauce will do, but this just literally takes 5 minutes. We're going to grate the garlic cloves first. Now I'm going to add about 3-4 tablespoons of olive oil to my pan that's heating over medium heat. Now we're going to add the garlic and just warm it through about 20 seconds. Smells good. Now we're going to add the pureed tomatoes. We're going to season it with some salt, a little bit of black pepper, and some crushed red pepper flakes. And we're going to let this cook over medium heat for about 5 minutes or until it begins to thicken. Then we're going to take it off the heat and let it cool completely. You can also put some dried oregano. I'm going to go over to the pantry and get it and add about a half a teaspoon of dried oregano to this. While the sauce is cooking, I'm going to prepare all my vegetables. I'm going to begin with the onion, and I'm just going to thinly slice it into rounds. I'm also going to slice the red pepper. Next, I'm going to clean and slice the mushrooms. So to clean them, you just want to rub them really well with a damp towel, and you can remove their stems. And we're just going to thinly slice those as well. I'm going to peel and thinly slice the potatoes, but I'm going to use a mandolin to slice the potatoes because I want them to be as thin as they can get. I'm using a mandolin to do this because it makes things so much faster and easier. Just if you're using one, make sure that you're very careful and you do use the guard that it comes with so that way you don't slice your fingers. This also can easily be done with a knife. Just use a very sharp knife and cut them as thin as possible. And last, we're going to thinly slice the eggplant. And I'm just going to transfer all of the vegetables to a tray so that way I can clean up my cutting board, because next we're going to roll out the puff pastry sheets. The tomato sauce literally took 5 minutes to cook. Once it's nice and thick, take it off the heat and taste it. And if it needs more seasoning, some salt, more pepper, or if it needs a pinch of sugar, if it's a little bit too acidic, you can go ahead and add it. Set it aside so it can cool completely. Now I'm just going to chop up my Kalamata olives. I'm just going to roughly chop them. So puff pastry is usually sold in the freezer section of the supermarket. If you're planning ahead and you know that you're going to make this, thaw the puff pastry out in the refrigerator overnight and then just take it out and let it sit at room temperature for about 20 minutes before you work with it. You could also thaw it out straight from the freezer, just let it come to room temperature. Then you're going to want to take both sheets out. Usually they're sold 2 sheets per box. Take both sheets out and connect them. Sprinkle some all-purpose flour on your work surface and roll them out so that way they could fit the inside of a 9 by 13 inch baking pan. Put them on the baking pan, so it should be just one big sheet because that's going to be the crust of your tart. Then go ahead and score a little border all around the sides. If you have some extra puff pastry that's hanging outside of the pan, that's no problem. Just go ahead and fold it over. It'll just make an extra nice thick crust for it. Then take a fork and pierce the center of the puff pastry tart, not the part that's going to be the crust, but the center, because you want that part to stay flat through while it's baking. Next, we're going to spread the tomato sauce on top. If you wanted to substitute the tomato sauce for something else, you could easily use a spinach pesto or a basil pesto instead. Now I'm going to top this with the Kalamata olives that are roughly chopped. And this is all a matter of preference, however you like it. You can put as little or as much Kalamata olives that you like. Now I'm gonna decoratively make rows of the vegetables, alternating potato, onion, bell pepper, each one of the vegetables that we slice. We're just gonna alternate them and just create beautiful rows. Once you're done layering the vegetables over the tart, then go ahead and drizzle some olive oil on top of it. Season it with some salt and pepper and a little bit of oregano. Then bake it in a preheated oven that's set to 375 degrees Fahrenheit in the center rack until the vegetables are fully cooked. As soon as the potatoes are fork tender, the tart is ready. I'll show you what it looks like as soon as it comes out. The remaining vegetables, you are going to have some leftover veggies. Just go ahead and put them in a baking pan, drizzle some olive oil, season them with salt and pepper and a little bit of oregano. If you have some harissa paste or some tomato sauce or even some pesto, mix them in there and bake it in the oven until the vegetables are fork tender. I'll show you what they look like as soon as they all come out. So the Briam tart took 1 hour to bake. It's going to take anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. You're going to want to keep an eye on it because every oven bakes different, and then it also depends on how thick or thin your veggies are cut, how long it's going to take for it to cook. If you're not worried about keeping it vegan, the last 10-15 minutes, go in and sprinkle some crumbled feta cheese all throughout on top of the tart because that is going to add a nice creamy salty bite to it. If you're keeping it vegan, there's enough flavor in here just to leave the cheese out. You're not going to miss it. You can also sprinkle some shredded Parmesan cheese on top right before you serve it. But what I did, I just chopped some fresh parsley and I just sprinkled it on top. I let it cool and it is ready to serve. Now the best thing about this is that this tastes good piping hot, but it tastes even better at room temperature. So it's great for a party food. I'm drooling over here, so I have to take a bite. Oh my God. The onions are perfectly caramelized. The puff pastry is so flaky and it's perfectly cooked. Those Kalamata olives in there just add so much flavor. That briny, meaty bite that they add is just exactly what's needed for this. The vegetables are perfectly cooked. This one, you guys, you're gonna wanna try out as soon as you're done watching this video. Whatever vegetables you have on hand, go ahead and make it. If you have some puff pastry in the freezer, take it out, make a batch of this and thank me later. It is so flavorful. It's also very elegant and beautiful to look at. You can use any vegetables you want. If there's something in here that I use that you particularly don't like, I know that lots of people don't like mushrooms. It's like one of those things that they either love it or hate it. Just leave it out. Substitute something that you do like or something that you do have on hand. You can use all root veggies to make this too, like some butternut squash, some beets, potatoes. That would make a fantastic tart. Play with the vegetables. Use what's in season. Use what you've got. Make this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you want all of the ingredients, step-by-step instructions, the whole recipe, go on over to www.dimitrasdishes.com to print the recipe out. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.